Today, we're going to show you how to teach your body that stress is designed for life or death situations and not doing simple stuff like opening emails. So let's start by understanding what our stress system was designed for. So if you look at the animal kingdom through which we evolved, like our stress system is designed for short-term life or death situations. So if we're like human beings in a jungle and we see a tiger, that's what our stress system is designed for. You can look at things like deer or impala or even mice or snakes. And all of these organisms have stress systems, and they're designed for sort of immediate and severe threats. The problem, if you call it a problem, it's kind of not really a problem, right? I think it's a win for the human race. Most of the time in society today, we're not faced with life or death situations, right? Like we're pretty secure, like we've got a place to sleep. Hopefully we have food and stuff like that. And so what we tend to see is that our stress system is inappropriately activated. The kinds of stress that we deal with today are more long-term. So on the first of the month, I'm already thinking about how am I going to pay my rent at the end of the month? How am I going to find a job? How am I going to find a partner? What's going to happen with climate change? What's going to happen with inflation? So the stressors that we face today are more chronic and long-term. And the problem is that our body has one system to deal with stress, and that system is designed for short-term stress. So in a weird way, our body inappropriately activates our stress system to deal with these problems. And this creates an even bigger issue. So if you're stressed out, you're probably sort of in this cycle of like, okay, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Let me engage in avoidance behaviors to make the stress go away. So I'm going to distract myself or things like that. And then as I distract myself and engage in avoidance, the problems that are causing me stress don't actually go away. And so as those problems build up and build up and build up, I start to feel even more overwhelmed and more stressed out. And so the problems tend to pile up. And then eventually you cross this very important threshold where your stress outweighs your feeling of overwhelmed. And then like at the last second, you procrastinate till the last minute. And then in a burst of stress-driven activity, you do something about your problem. If you're ready to take the next step on your mental health journey, check out Dr. K's guide. It's an immersive resource that distills over 20 years of my experience laid out in a way that is tailored to your needs. So if you're ready to better understand your mind and take control of it, check out the link in the description below. But your performance in that point isn't very good, right? You're kind of exhausted, you're sort of stressed out, you're doing everything all at once, everything is rushed, and then you end up kind of doing a crappy job anyway. And then you beat yourself up, and then the cycle just repeats itself. So today we're going to teach y'all how to short circuit that entire process, how to really understand how stress works so that you can optimally solve your problems. So let's start by understanding how our body keeps stress in check. So normally, let's say I'm walking through the jungle and I see a tiger. I start to run. There's a burst of CRH and then ACTH, and then that leads to cortisol. Adrenaline gets activated. As all these systems get activated, I also have a physical component. So since I'm running, my heart starts beating really fast, my blood pressure increases, and then something really, really interesting happens. As all of these things activate and I start running away, my body detects all of these things. So there are these things called your carotid baroreceptors, which are blood pressure sensors in your neck. And this is kind of interesting. You know, in movies and stuff, when there's like a ninja and they like choke someone out, they're not actually cutting off their oxygen flow. What they're actually doing is squeezing on both sides of your carotid baroreceptors. And this is what's really interesting. When they squeeze on both sides of the carotid baroreceptors, our body thinks, oh my God, the blood pressure is way too high. Our blood pressure is huge, right? Because you're squeezing on those parts. So it increases the pressure. And as we increase the pressure there, it actually causes our heart rate to slow down and our blood pressure to drop, which causes people to pass out in the movies. But if we sort of stop and think about that, what we actually discover is this is the natural way that our body compensates with a high stress situation. When our blood pressure goes up and our heart rate goes up, our body recruits other things to slow our heart rate down, to decrease our blood pressure, and to stop the production of cortisol. Now, the problem in today's world is that when we feel stressed out, there is not that physical component. right? So we get cortisol release, but we don't actually increase our heart rate. We don't increase our blood pressure. We don't start hyperventilating because we're not physically running away from everything. The other thing that happens when we physically run away from things is that we release endorphins, and endorphins will help us literally relax. So basically what happens in the natural world and through millions of years of evolution is anytime my body gets stressed, it automatically starts the circuitry to de-stress. Endorphins, parasympathetic nervous system activation, and you'll kind of understand this if you go for a very brisk run, like if you exercise a lot, what does your body want to do afterward? It wants to do absolutely nothing. I'm going to sit down. I need to relax. You don't feel like doing anything. You're not even mentally stressed. You're just kind of vegging out. And so this is the really interesting thing. Our stress system today does not recruit any of those things because we feel this chronic stress with no homeostatic activation. There's no balancing of the stress response in today's world. So interestingly enough, if we want to actually de-stress, what we need to do is recruit those systems. So if you're feeling super stressed out about something, what you need to do is the most vigorous exercise you can do for as short of a time period as you can kind of tolerate. So we're not talking about 20 minutes a day. We're not talking about wake up every day and exercise. What we're talking about is literally if you are feeling stressed out, try to run as if a monster is chasing you and your life depends on it. Run as hard as you can for as short of a time period as you can. Like you don't have to run for a long time. You could literally do a dead ass sprint for like 90 seconds. And if you feel absolutely exhausted and you can't run 91 seconds, then you're doing it right. Now, this is the really interesting thing. A lot of people may say, does this mean that I need to exercise? No. So this is what's really cool. So if you run at 50% of your capacity, you do not shut off your stress system. If you run at 70% of your capacity, you shut off your stress system more. If you run at 90% or 100% of your capacity, that recruits the greatest shut off of your stress system. So think about it very simply, right? So the harder you exercise and the more difficult your exercise is, the more that it stresses your body. The more that it stresses your body, the more that your body has to compensate as soon as the stress ends to even release more and more endorphins and calm you down even more. So the beautiful thing about this technique is that if you are not in shape, if you are not used to exercising, you will actually get a greater stress reduction than someone who is in shape. And the really cool thing about that is that once we shut off our stress system, then something beautiful happens. Once we're no longer stressed out and our CRF level drops, then you will stop engaging in avoidance behaviors. Your cravings for avoidance will literally go shut down or decrease because our body is using endorphins to shut off CRF production. Once we shut off CRF production, our desire for cravings, distraction, and avoidance actually decreases, which then makes it more easier to actually do the task that is stressing you out in the first place. So if you're in a situation where the thought of opening up your email triggers a stress response, or sending a message to someone, or needing to cancel social plans, if you're stressed out about that, engage in as vigorous exercise as you can for as long as you can. It doesn't have to be long. And then you'll start to slow down, you'll start to stop avoiding things, and then you'll actually be able to focus on the task at hand and do something about it. And the beautiful thing is, as you do things about it, your overall global stress will start to get better because you have fewer things to be stressed out about. So the problem in today's society is that our stress system gets inappropriately activated by mental tasks. But our stress system is actually designed for physical survival. And the beautiful thing is that the stress system has a built-in off switch. The problem is the stresses that we deal with today don't actually shut off the off switch. Even if you think about completing the task, what does that do to your stress level? It's sort of a relief, but you don't actually feel fully relaxed afterward. And why is that? It's because when you complete the mental task, you're not recruiting the endorphin system. You're not recruiting your parasympathetic nervous system. You're not actually shutting off CRF production. So as soon as we're done with our task, what do we go back into? We give into cravings. So if you want to master your stress in today's society, you've got to recruit your stress system in the right way. So hopefully this is helpful. Give this a shot and kind of let us know, does this work for you, not work for you? We'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and comment, like, or subscribe.